So, good morning, everyone. Today we're going to learn about the material requirement planning MRP part 1. And this material is very have a close relationship with the previous one, which is the aggregate planning. So, if in aggregate, we learn about um, when do we buy material and how many the material that we need to buy. It is on aggregate. So when we study in aggregate, we're studying about the macro concept, which is a general concept. And after that, we learn about the when did what kind of component that we actually need to buy. For example, you want to sell a hamburger, and I think before you open your store, you must purchase some material first. And when you purchase some material, it means you need to know what is the part, what is a component to make a hamburger. For example, you need bread, you need veggies, you need what do you call it? Maybe a sauces, and then maybe you need smoked beef, for example. And when you want to sell something, you need to understand in detail what is the component on your product. And after you know the component of your product, you need to understand how many quantity for each component and when did you need to buy this component. So all of this thing we're going to learn in MRP part 1. So this is what we're going to study today. We're going to learn about the dependent demand, dependent inventory model requirement, and MRP structure, and also MRP management. Okay, before we learn about the MRP, we need to learn about what is the concept of MRP itself. When you're talking about the MRP, actually you need to understand that there are terminology about dependent demand. So what is dependent demand? Wait. So, according to Heze and Render, when you learn about the MRP, there are one terminology about dependent demand. And what is dependent demand? Dependent demand, it is something that related to your component. If you see that there are one component increases because the demand are increases, and this component also have a relationship with the other component, it's called dependent demand. For example, the what do you call it? The demand of a hamburger are increasing. So it means all the component that we need to make a hamburger is also increased. That's why that's what we call dependent demand. And you see that this in here it is stated that dependent model are better not only for manufacturer and distributors but also for a wide variety of firm from restaurant to hospital. So actually this is part of apa, part of product, and then this is the company or the industry that produce services. So it means that dependent model is not only can be used in product but also in services. So what is dependent demand? For any product for which a schedule can be established, dependent demand technique should be used. So when you think when you need to make a scheduling, it means that you also need one technique, and one of them are dependent demand. This is the keyword for dependent demand. The demand for one item is related to the demand for another item. So like I said before, if you want to sell hamburger, you know what is the component for making a hamburger. And when you know that your product are increasing, the demand of hamburger increasing, it means all the component that you need is also increasing. So that is what it called that the item related to the demand for another item. And then given a quantity for the n item, the demand for all part and component can be calculated. So actually in the end, you can do some calculations, how many component that being sold, that been sold, and then you can also make a list for each component, how many item, how many quantity that you need for each item. So it is also stated that MRP actually a common technique. So many manufacturers, not only manufacturers, but also industry who offering services, they also use MRP. Okay. So what is the MRP? MRP is a computerized information system developed specially to help manufacturers manage dependent demand inventory and schedule replenishment order. It is stated by Twarowski in 2013. 13. And also there are also some definition from Heze and Randall. MRP is a dependent demand technique that uses a bill of material, inventory, expected receipt, and a master production schedule to determine material requirement. So these both are definitions about MRP. There are also some software that usually used to develop the MRP in a company that which is being called by ERP, which is Enterprise Resource Planning. So what is the benefit of MRP? You can read it in your slide. So actually, the most of all, the most among all of these items, I think the most benefit of MRP is you can have what do you call it? A list of components that you need. You can manage your material well. So by managing your material in a good way, yeah, it means that you are avoided to make some waste on material, because some company when they don't need manage their material in a good way, they have inventory, and in the end when this inventory are not being used to produce something, and it will be a waste. So when it become a waste, it means another cost for your company. So this is dependent inventory model requirement. When you want to use the MRP technique, so there are some steps that you need to do. The first is you need to build master production scheduling. And in this MPS, in master production scheduling, you need to describe what is to be made and when. And the second one is specifications or bill of material. Some of the reference call this bill of material by using the terminology product structures. In bill of material, there are information about materials and part required to make the product. And the third one is inventory availability, what is in stock. And then the fourth one is purchase order outstanding, what is on order, also called expected receipt. So, and then the last one is lead time, how long it takes to get various components. So sometimes some company, if they don't manage this scheduling well, when they ready to produce something, suddenly they realize that, oh no, one component are missing. And when they have this situation, it means they need to delay their productions, and it's not good for the company. So actually, this MRP also help the company to avoid a delay when they need to do the production process. Until this slide, do you have any questions? No? Okay, I
No,
will
ma'am.
okay, I will move to the next slide. So actually, this is the structures, the relationship between MRP and other steps. So in the planning process, since the MRP are being made in the planning process. So before you do the productions, actually the first thing you need to do is you need to plan everything. For example, you need to plan the supply chains, you need to plan the productions, you need to plan the marketing, finance, human resource, sales and operation planning, and also you need to plan the master production schedule and also the master requirement planning and other planning that you need. But in this MRP, there is a step like you see in the drawing in the picture. So wait. Okay, so actually before we make the MRP, you need to make MPS first. So in MPS, You will receive information about gross requirement. Meanwhile, in MRP, you will have net requirement. In the gross requirement, it means you don't care about the inventory, you don't care about schedule receive, you don't care about project on hand. You are avoiding all of these informations. But in MRP, it means that you need to calculate. So, how many is the net requirement? It means that you need to sub this information about the project on hand or inventory and then schedule receive, and actually this will affect your gross requirement, and then it will become net requirement. And when you build the master production system, master production scheduling, you need some information, for example, about the procurement, who is your supplier and how they perform. And when you want to make a MPS, it means that you need to ask this information to the supply division. Actually, usually in one company, there are one division that um, in charge in supply chains or procurement. And also you need to have information about the capacity, and then how is your inventory, so you will not produce exit demand. And then you also need to ask the marketing, how is the customer demand. So if you know this information, it will make you make a better master production scheduling. And also you need to build an aggregate planning, which is we already learned last week. And then also in finance division, you need to ask about the cash flow, because it's very important. When you want to buy some materials, you need money, right? And after you buy the material, you do the production process, and and we need to sell as fast as we can our products. So the cash flow will um, what we call it, the cash flow is going. Um, and then for the human resource, you also need to have information about staff planning. You need, if you have you need another employee, then you need to uh, discuss it with the human resource. So this is the planning process, and this is the example of master production scheduling. If in aggregate we only have information about total quantity of a product, in this case I use a furniture product. For example, in January you will need to make 1000 furnitures, and in February you need to make 750 furnitures. So this is the aggregate planning. The demand are the information about the demand is so general, we cannot know what kind of furniture that they need. But in MPS, it's more detailed, since in here we try to make some what do you call it? You need to in what do you call it? To arrange here from monthly requirement into weekly requirement. So in here in MPS, the measurement is in a week. So each week there are information about how many products are needed. For example, there are desks that the the demand are needed in week 1 for 100, and also chair in week 2 for 200, and then bed in week 2 for 300, and etc. So okay, you can see in this picture, when we're talking about the MPS, the information is more detailed. Okay. When you're talking about the MPS, there are some information or some technique that can be used. Sorry, the first one is make to order technique, and then the second one is assemble to order, and the third one is stock to forecast. Okay, the first technique, make to order. So actually, the company will start to produce product if the customer order comes. When the customer order hasn't arrived yet, then the company do nothing. So if the company choose to make or to use this kind of technique, it means that this company avoiding inventory. So this type of company, they cannot, they don't want to have inventory, and maybe also because this product, their product, it is something that cannot be stored. For example, a company who use the make to order technique are restaurant, so they cannot store the menu, they cannot store the food because they cannot predict what kind of menu that the customer will choose. So in this type of any kind of restaurant, we'll use this make to order. And then the second one is assemble to order or forecast. So this company actually, if you choose the second technique, it means that you don't want to have a large amount of inventory, but on the other side, you also don't want to make your customer disappointed. Actually, one example of this assemble to order practice is in the automotive industry. For example, Toyota or Honda, usually they use this assemble to order. Maybe already tell you about the story that my friend who worked in Toyota, they said that actually they store a basic module of car. For example, you know that the Avanza and also Xenia, they have a same basic form. And then actually they already have this inventory on their on their warehouse. But all of these car are the color of this car are all in white. So when the customer order arrive, for example, a customer want Avanza in a black color, Avanza version G, for example, or Avanza or new Avanza, for example. Then when the order arrive, the production staff start to produce. They assemble the car until this car are qualified to be the type of car that the customer want. So, but actually they already have the basic module on their warehouse. And the last one is stock to forecast company. So actually this kind of company who choose this technique, they have a lot of inventory and they sure that they can sell this inventory. For example, wholesalers like Hero, Giant, Carrefour, uh, company that sell the consumer good, usually they already have a lot of stock in their warehouse. But I saw some article then that and actually that is a sad news that one of the wholesaler, Hero if I'm mistaken, they are close their branch, so they want to focus to the IKEA brand, the IKEA brand. So they close a lot of outlet Hero in all Indonesia um, province. Some Most of the store are being closed, so because they cannot fight with this situation. So that is a sad part, because that is the example of a company who use stock to forecast. Maybe in the future this technique is not good anymore, it's not relevant anymore, because when you stock something, it means you have inventory. And when you have inventory, it means you need to prepare if this inventory cannot be sold to the customer. And in the end, maybe you're going to have some loss in money. Okay. This is the example of MPS. So these are the gross requirement for Harijati furniture bed set. This is on day daily requirement, and this is the quantity. This is part of MPS. Okay. I hope you can learn by yourself what is the definition of bill of materials, and then um, in inventory record. Because of this, I will continue with the simulations, illustrations. Okay, so this is the case, the illustrations. So a furniture company named Helijati Furniture has many product lines. One of the most selling items was office chair, which representing the new modern product line. This office chair, that we identified this with A, or we call it A component, consists three main parts, which are back assembly or B, seat assembly or C, and leg assembly or D. Back assembly or B consists one foam or E, and then seat assembly consists one foam E, two arm pad F, and two arm bracket. So you can see in the pictures that there are similar component, which is foam that being used in back assembly, and also foam that being used in seat assembly. And then leg assembly or component D consists one task chair control, which is we call it by H, and four chase base or E component, and four casters, we call it by G. One day, the store received order to make 25 office chair. So when you draw it in product structures, these product structures will be like this. So actually, like I said before, when you want to sell something, you need to understand very well about the product structures. So this is the more complete version, the product structure for office chair. The office chair or the final product are in the O level or zero level. So this is the finished product or final product. Before making this product, there are three main components: back assembly, seat assembly, and leg assembly, which we call it by level one, or level one, number one. And there are also level number two, which is foam, two foam, and then arm pad, arm bracket, toss chair control, chair base, and caster. So if you see the picture, this is the component. So when you want to make some calculation by using MRP techniques, you need to understand very well about your product structure first. So because if we use this office chair, seat assembly, leg assembly, the picture are going to be long and it's not effective. So we in the future we're going to use this coding. So A is for office chair or final product, B, C, D for the other part of the office chairs. One, it means that to make one A product, you need one B, one C, one D. This is the quantity. For making one B, one component B, you need to provide one component E. For making one component C, you need to provide one component E, two component F, and two component G. And for component D, for making one component D, you need to provide one component H, four component I, and also and also four component J. So this is the product structures. Okay, until this slide, do you have any questions? Because on MRP, if you fail to do one step, it's mean the rest of the step also failed. Okay, please, do you have any questions until this slide? Okay, if you don't have any questions, I will move to this. So for making 25 office chair, this is the list of component, the summarize of your total component. For part B, because for making one chair, 1A, you need one part B. So it means In the end, you will need 1 times number of A. If the component A, you need 25 component A, it means you need 25 component B, because this is the calculation. 1 times 25 become 25. And to make part C, you need to provide, to make one component A, you need one C. So if you need to make 25A, it means you need to provide 1 times number of A. So in this case, you need to provide 1 times 25. So you need 25 component C to make 25 office chair. Okay, for component D, to make one office chair, you need one D. Since you need to make 25 office chairs, it means that you need to provide 1 times number of A component D. So it means that you need to provide 25 component D to make 25 office chair. For component E, since E are being used in B and also being used in C, so we have this formula. So for E for B, you need one one component E to make B. So to make component A, it means that you need to make 1 times B. If the component B are 25, so you need E for B as much as 25 units. And for E for C, to make component A, you need 1 times C for component A. So it means that to making 25 office chairs, you need to have 50 unit of component A, which is 25 for B and 25 for C. Okay, after this, do you have any questions? No? No questions? Okay. So this is the same also for part F, G, H, I, J. So actually you need to put this number into this calculation. When you want to make this summarize of all the component you needed to making 25 office chairs, it means you need to see the bill of materials. So this is the information you need to know. How you decide that to make B, to calculate how many B it's 1 times A because of these structures. And then to make F, you need 2 times C because of these structures. Okay, answer this. Do you have any questions? Please. No? No questions? Okay, I will move to another slide. And after you make a recap about all of the material that you need, the number of quantity for each material that you need to make 25 office chairs. And the next part is you need to know how many weeks you need to make all of this product, because the consumer wants you to make 25 office chairs. You also need to inform them when this order will be when the customer can receive all of this product. And actually we need to calculate the lead time. In the illustrations, in the previous exam, some of the questions give you information how many time you needed to make this all, but the other kind of question also do not give you a clear information actually how many time you needed to make all of these chairs. In the picture you can see that we need 6 weeks actually to make all of these chairs. Okay. Let's say that in this information there are no information about the total week you needed to make 25 chairs, but there is some information the lead time for each component. For example, the table here inform you about the lead time for each component. For component A, you need 1 week. For component B, 2 weeks, and then component C, 1 week, and etc. So this information is given. Then we need to know how can we make this lead time. Time phase product structures. Okay, the first thing you need to do is you need to also look again those product structures. So that's why I give this picture in here. And also, of course, you need to know the lead time for each component. And the first thing you need to do is draw a line like this. And maybe you can put some number in here. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And the first thing you need to do is look at the product structures. Look at the lowest level, which is the level number 2. In level number 2, there are some component, right? So it means that among all these components, E, F, G, H, I, J, my tips is choose the component who has the longest lead times. So among all of these components, component F has the longest lead time, which is 3 weeks. So let's start with component F. The first thing you do is draw a line for component F. Component F need 3 weeks. It means that one, two, three. And we always start with 1, not 0. Why not 0? Because this measurement unit are in week. There are no 0 week. If we said week 1, it means that in week 1 consists 7 days. But if you put it 0, it means there is no time. There is no time to start it. So it's not uh, uh, good to put 0. So you just start with 1, and then you draw a line like this. So after this, we have F, component F. And then go back, look at the product structure. What is component F? And do the component F have friend? Oh yes, they do. The component F need also E and G, and if they collaborate, they can use to make component C. So it means you started from here. You can start from component G or component E, it's up to you. But usually I choose the longest lead time among E and G, because G 2 weeks, then I put line like this, draw to the up, and then back like this, 1, 2. So this is the component G. And then after that, we draw a component E, and we draw the line, the lead time, 1 week like this. And after we have EGF, it means we can start to produce component F. Then we move forward because we know that component C need 1 week, and we can move forward to here. And after we have C, we also need to look at the BOM or the product structures. This component C will be useful will be useless if there is no B and D. So it's up to you. You want to start with B or you want to start with D. It's up to you. And with the same techniques, you try to draw a line to get know the lead time for component B. And here the component B, and then because the component B only have one product structures, and we know that the component B need 2 weeks, so the line will be like this, 1, 2 in here. And after we know the starting point for the component B, we know this component B cannot be built when they don't have any component C. So this is the component E, 1 week. So we already have B and C, then we move forward to D. With the same technique, you can use to make component D. And in the end, after you have D, B, and C, you can start to produce component A, because all of this material that which is being used being needed to make component A already be already there. So you can start to make component A, and because the component A have 1 week lead time, and it's meant that you move to here. So although there are no information about how many lead time provided to make these chairs, by using this technique, you can predict how many weeks that this component, this customer order will finish. And we know that by using this technique, we need 6 weeks to complete 25 office chairs. After this, do you have any questions, please? If there is
Why the ing is for on the box?
ing, this is the same technique with B and C actually. After you have B and C, you know that there are one component left, which is D, and just draw up to the line equal with B and C because they are in the same level. B and C are in the same level. And when you know that the D need 1 week, you go back to here in the week 4, and then because you know that we cannot make component D without component hij, so it means you need to draw hij. You can start with hij or ijh or jih. It's up to you, as long as these components are in the same level or in the same week. So for this, we draw backward like this. So then after this, finish. Okay.
Oh, okay. S- I understand, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Do you have any information? Do you have any questions again before we move to the MPS? Okay, what is the need? What is the use of these lead time structures? Um, Not only to know how many weeks you need to make the 25 office chairs, but you also need these structures to determining the sequence or the list of component. Okay, let's start. So if by using this, the final product is A, right? So you can put the sequence like this: A, and then B, and then D, and then C, and then H, and then I, and then J, and then E, G, F. Why I don't mention again about E? Because E already put in here. So just use the nearest E you have from the final product. Or the second can be like this: A, C, B, D, F, F, and then G, E, J, I, H. It's up to you. um, but the most important thing you need to know is when you need to decide which one is come first between hij, as long as they are in the same level, you can make you can reorder the sequences. But if they are in the different level, you cannot switch them. For example, you cannot switch between D with H or D with I. Why? Because the D in the product structures need to come first. They are in the second level. They are in the level number 1. So this is the way you decided the sequence. So what is the sequence we have for what purpose? Let's move to the next slide. We'll skip this. Okay, I will move to this. To know, do you are that are you have no are your calculations are correct? Actually, first is if the lead times, if you can know the lead times, and then you can count the lead time exactly in a good way or in the correct way. So it means that the previous step are correct. And then the other step to check whether this calculation is correct is by using this gross requirement. If the latest component are in here in the week one, it means maybe you are already do this technique in the correct way, in the right way. But if these latest component are in here and it is there is no number in here, it means that something wrong with your the way you solve this problem. Okay. So let's move to the MPAS, which is gross requirement material. This is the use the function of sequence that we already decided in the previous step. We have A, D, B, C, H, I, J, A, G, F. So this is the sequence, not A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. This sequence are related with the product structure, product structure lead times here. If you do this sequence in the wrong order, you will get confused and you cannot check whether your technique are true or not. But if you put the order like this and the latest number are in the week one, maybe it is a clue that you already do this step in the right way. Okay, let's start to calculate this. So in the material requirement, you already need two information. The first information is required date, and the second information is order release date. Required date is like that. The when must this product finish, and order release date it means that when must this product start to produce, or when must this product start to buy to board, and then also maybe when must this product start to be assembled. So this is the starting point, this is the finish. Okay, let's begin. Okay, the first component is component A. We know that the component A have 1 week lead time and they need to be finished in week 6. How can we know this week 6? Because of the previous step when we'll calculate about the lead times. We know that in week 6 you need to have to produce, you need to provide 25 office chairs. Since the lead time is 1 week, it's meant that these 25 office chairs must be started to produce in week 5. Okay. And then the second component is D. Look at the bill of material. Okay. D, what is the component D? Okay, I will copy first this. Okay, to make it more easier for me to explain it to you, I will copy this first and I'll put it on in here. So you don't need to back and forth the slide. Okay, I'll put it on here. I'll move to here. Okay. Okay. So we already have these product structures. Okay, we know that we need D to make component A. It means that component A cannot start to produce when there are no D. So it means if the component A, are start to produce in week 5, it means that the component D must be finished in week 5. And when does the component D start to assemble or start to order or start to produce? Because the lead time is 1 week, then this component D are start to produce in week 4. And look at the component B. Look at the product structures. Since the component B are used to make a component A, it means without component B, C, D, the A component cannot be produced. So It means that component B must must what do you call it? Must be finished to produce on here in week 5. Why? Because we need component B to produce component A. Because of the lead time is 2 weeks, it means that the component B must start to produce in week 3. And look at
It's
the
1 week earlier, ma'am.
sorry, 1, 2 here.
Or two weeks earlier.
Yes, 2 weeks earlier. Um, for the component C, because you need C for A, it means the C component must be finished in week 5. Because in week 5, the three of them, C, B, and D, are needed to produce component A. Because of component C, the lead time is 1 week, so you need to start to produce component C in week 4. So this is the same step for other component, but I will explain to you for component A because maybe for you it is a little bit complicated since A are needed for component B and also component C. So it's up to you. You want to start from component B first or component C first? Okay. In here, I start with component B. So E for B. This component E for B must be ready when B start to produce. Since B are start to produce in week 3, it means the component E for B must be finished on week 3. And E for B must start to produce 1 week earlier, which is here. And E for C, because the component C start to produce in week 4, it means E for C must be ready in here because it will be used to make component C, and this E4C must start to produce 1 week earlier, which is in week 3. So actually this is the main concept of gross material requirement. Until this step, do you have any questions? Please, if you're still confused with a step in here or maybe the previous one, I will explain it again to you. No? Okay, because the gross material requirement, they don't care about the safety stock, they don't care about the order received, they don't care about the schedule received, sorry, they don't care about the project on hand. After this, we're going to calculate the net material requirement, which is in net material requirement, we start to consider about the gross requirement, allocations, on hand, schedule, receive. So this is the formula to calculate net requirement. Actually, when you want to know the net requirement, the main formula is total requirement minus available inventory, which is when we talk about the total requirement, two example of this are gross requirement and also allocation. What is the difference between gross requirement and allocation? If we're talking about the gross requirement, it is the order that come on this and that period. So usually we use a period to make this MRP. For example, in every 6 weeks, we calculate the MRP. Gross requirement is mean the order that came on that period, on that 6 weeks. Meanwhile, the allocation is the order came before the period of MRP that we try to calculate now. For example, this MRP, we calculate MRP for January to June. On that period, the company still producing the order from the previous period. For example, from December, but you produce you produce these materials uh, in the in the current period. So allocation is mean that this product already being sold already or this product are produced for the other customer. That is the allocation. Meanwhile, the available inventory consists two type of two components or two indicator. The first one is on hand, project on hand, which is the component or the product that you already store in your warehouse, or scheduled receive. Or what is the difference between on hand with scheduled receive is if on hand are finished product, meanwhile the scheduled receive are product that's still on process, so work in process product. But this product will finish on the current period you calculate this MRP. Do you have any question for this? So you need to understand the logic of net requirement first. Then then we can move to the previous step. Sorry, then we can move to the next slide. Next step. No questions. Okay, we move to the net requirement. So this is the another information. You will have information about on hand for each component. So it is being known, and this is the example of net requirement. So there are several columns, like you see in your screen. There are lot size, there are lead time, there are on hand, there are safety stock, they are allocated, there are level code, item identifications, and then there are six columns which representing the week, because on the previous slide you know that we need 6 weeks to produce all these 25 office chairs. And you also need to know the information about the gross requirement, schedule receive, project on hand, net requirement, plan order receive, and plan order release. So for this lead time already been known from the previous slide, on hand also already been known. In this case, there are no safety stock, there are no allocated, there are no schedule receive. So you need to know what is the use of the safety stock, what is the use of on hand, they are part of inventory, and then what is the function of allocated and also schedule receive. Okay, let me go back to the previous slide. So you know that allocation is part of requirement, meanwhile schedule receive is part of inventory. Okay, so make sure that you take a note for this formula. Okay, the sequence is still the same with the gross requirement. We still have A, D, B, C, H, I, J, E, G, F. This is the same sequence like the previous that we use on the gross requirement. And also, you need to put the information about the project on hand. And let's start. Actually, the concept is still the same. The difference is the final uh, quantity of each component will be different because it is affected by on hand, safety stock, allocated, and also schedule receive. Like I said before, in this case, there are no safety stock, there are no allocated, there are no schedule receive. So we only know about the project on hand. Okay, let's start. You know that in week 6, you need to make 25 office chair. So these office chairs must be finished on week 6. There are no schedule received, there are project on hand. And this number, you need to write it on week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Why? Because along the process, this project on hand is still on the warehouse until they are being used in week 6. That's why you need to put this number on here. And then the net requirement, you need to put the consumer needs 25 chair. Meanwhile, you already have 10 chair. It's meant that the requirement will be 15. Oh, wait.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, ma'am. Your voice is doesn't come out. We can hear your voice, ma'am.
Okay, so actually, let me repeat it again. So if you know that in week 6 you need to provide 25 office chairs, and you know you have project on hand, why this number, this 10, are written in week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Because actually, project on hand are the final product that already being there on your warehouse. So it's meant that during your process in producing this 25 office chairs, you already have final product of office chairs about 10 units. So this why this 10, the number 10 are written in here week 1 until week 5. And in week 6, this component, the 10 final product are being used to reduce the requirement. So you have 25 gross requirement, but you already have project on hand 10. It's mean you already have net requirement for 15 units, and you plan to receive this order, or you plan to make this order are finished in week 6, and you plan to release the order in week 5 because the lead time is 1 week. This is the same technique that you use to calculate the component D. Like I said before, D are being used to make component A. It means that when component A start to produce, the component D must be finished. So in here, you know from the passage that we have project on hand 10 unit. It means that the net requirement become 5. It's which is 15 minus 10 become 5, and then the plan order received will be also 5 in week 5, and plan order release are also 5 in the week 4. So this technique, you can use it for another component such as B, and also C, H, I, J, and other. But I will try to explain to you with the component E. Why? Because it is a little bit complicated, since E are being used in component B and also component C. E for component B, they must be ready in week 3, because in week 3, E for B are being used for making B. So it means in week 3, this component E for B must be ready. Meanwhile, the component C, E for C, must be ready in week 4, because C are start to produce in week 4. And you have project on hand, 3 unit, because the component B are the nearest component that you have in making E for B. So you use this project on hand for complete this component B. So it means gross requirement E for B, you still have 7 for the net requirement. And then plan order received are in the week 3, 7 unit, and plan order release, since the lead time are 1 week, then you need to start to produce in week 2. And for C, E for C, because the project on hand already being used for B, it means there are 0 project on hand for C. So it means that the gross requirement E for C is still 5, and the net requirement is still 5, and they plan to receive this order, or this final product E for C must be ready in also in week 4 in here. And then the plan order release must start from week 3. So in here. For the G and L, you can use the same technique to put this number. So I think from MRP itself, the most complicated part is when you have the same components that being used in a different component. For example, in this case, we have E, but E are being used for component B and also component C. So you need also, actually, it is more easier for you to make identification like this. Just put B, just put C to make a notification that this number 10 is belong to B, and then this 5 is belong to C, and so on. So that is the net requirement. Until this, do you have any questions? Please, if you have any question, whether it's about lead times or product structures or this, what do you call it, a summarize of whole component that you use to make this product chair, please feel free to ask. Okay, do you have any questions? Adrian, Muhammad Wijan, Luciana Zulfa, Muhammad Fatur Rahman, do you have any questions? Give us okay, I will stop.
I think no, ma'am.